Velsorn Keene came into my evaluation bay on a Thursday morning with a folder under her arm, and the particular expression of someone who has rehearsed what they are about to say at least a dozen times, and has decided, standing there in the doorway, to skip the rehearsed version. She was tall even for her people, copper-bronze skin, dark hair pulled back in the practical clasp that Velsorn House members seemed to prefer when they were not at court. She had been on Waystation Orithketh 5 for 3 years, working in the Transit Administration office on Sublevel 2, and I had passed her in the commissary corridor enough times to nod to. We had not spoken at length. I set down the load tolerance file I was working through and waited. She said, "I would like to discuss a proposal with you, Evaluator Corin. It concerns my sister." I told her to sit down. She sat across from the work desk, placed the folder on her knee, and looked at me steadily. "My sister's name is Ethai," she said. "Velsorn Ethai. She is 26 years old. She was born without lower limbs, a congenital variance in our house line that appears rarely, perhaps once in 3 generations. She lives here on the station. She has lived here for 4 years. She works in the technical document archive on Sublevel 1, and she is good at it. She reads faster than anyone I have ever known, and she retains everything." She paused. The folder stayed on her knee. "In 11 weeks, she said, "the house relocation order takes effect. My posting here ends. The house administration has determined that Ethai should be transferred to the Velsorn Dependent Care Annex at Kethorvath 3. It is a proper facility. It is staffed correctly. It is 8 transit days from here. She has no say in it." I did not say anything. She looked at me, and then she said the thing she had rehearsed. "I have watched you for 3 years, Evaluator. You are not cruel. You are not careless. You are patient with things that require patience and precise about things that require precision, and you treat everyone in the commissary corridor the same way, which is to say, as though they are a person worth a moment of your time. My sister needs someone who will stay, someone who will be here when I cannot be, someone who will see her correctly." She opened the folder and set it on my desk. It was a compact household registry form, half completed. Her sister's name was already in the primary resident field. "I am asking you," she said, "to marry my sister." The commissary was quiet outside. Someone was moving crates on the loading dock 2 levels down, and the rhythm of it came up through the floor, faint and regular. I looked at the form for a long time. "I have not met her," I said. "I know. I am asking you to meet her first. I am asking you to consider it." She folded her hands on the desk, precise and steady. "I am a practical person, Evaluator. I am not asking you to love someone you do not know. I am asking you to consider whether you might be the right answer to a problem I cannot solve by myself." I told her I would think about it. She said, "She comes to the commissary every morning at 7:30. She sits at the corner table with the eastern window. She has coffee and reads. If you wanted to meet her by accident, that is when she is there." She stood, left the folder on my desk, the half-completed form, just sitting there, and walked out. I sat with that folder for a long time after she left. I should tell you what I was, at the point this happened, so you understand why the folder sat there, and why I eventually picked it up. I was 47 years old. I had spent 22 years doing structural load assessments for the Compact Infrastructure Division, mostly on outer corridor waystations, the kind of postings that cycled maintenance evaluators through on 3-year contracts and then moved them on to the next station. I had been good at it. I was precise. I read structural problems correctly. I wrote clear reports. And I had no strong feelings about where I was stationed because after 22 years of outer corridor postings, the waystations all had the same bones, the same sublevel layouts, the same ceiling panel heights, the same recycled air smell. You learned to find the small differences that made each place itself. The particular slant of light through the east-facing observation corridor, the sound of a specific atmospheric relay doing its overnight calibration, the way the commissary coffee was slightly better on odd-numbered floors. My contract at Orithketh 5 had been renewed twice, which meant I had been here 6 years, which was longer than I had been anywhere since I was a child. I had not planned that. It had simply happened, the way the quiet things happen, not by decision, but by accumulation, one morning after another until the mornings added up to something that felt like a place. I had no family on the station. I had a colleague on sub-level 3 named Velorvath Seln who lent me books and disagreed with my ceiling load estimates in a way that was professionally rigorous and personally friendly. I had the commissary at 7:30, and the evaluation bay, and the evening hours in the observation corridor, where the outer ring of the station was visible through the long window, turning slowly. I was not unhappy. I was also not, in any sense I could name precisely, particularly purposeful. I picked up the folder that evening, read the form carefully, set it down, read it again. Then I sat for a while, longer looking at the space where it had been. I did not go to the commissary at 7:30 the next day. I went the day after. She was there, corner table, eastern window. Coffee in a standard station mug, and a tablet propped against the salt dispenser with a document open on it that I could not read from the distance of the service line. I got my coffee and I stood for a moment looking at the corner table, and then I walked to it. "Mind if I sit here?" I said. "The other tables have the light wrong for reading." She looked up, pale gray eyes, the light Velsorn skin with the faint blue undertone, dark hair cut short and practical. She was seated, and the lower half of her chair was occupied by the kind of narrow mobility frame that compact engineering produced for people who needed it. Functional, precise, not particularly elegant, designed to get the job done rather than to be unobtrusive about it. She had adapted it, I noticed. There was a small tool roll clipped to the left side with a bungee-style mount that looked homemade, and a document clip on the right side that held what appeared to be a maintenance reference card. "The light here is good," she said, and looked back at her tablet. I sat down. We did not speak for several minutes. I read the maintenance scheduling file I had brought on my own tablet. She read whatever she was reading. The commissary filled up slowly around us, and then emptied again toward the 800 shift change. A Velkarath cargo worker came in and ordered 3 coffees at once, which the server handled with the particular patient efficiency of someone who had seen this before. After a while she said, without looking up, "You are Evaluator Corin. You approved the atmospheric relay recalibration on sub-level 3 last month." "I did. The relay has been overcycling since the recalibration. The calibration report specified a 4.2-second interval, but the relay is running on a 3.9-second interval. The difference produces a faint harmonic in the east maintenance corridor between 2200 and 400. I put my tablet down. "You can hear that harmonic." "I live in the east residential block. I can hear most things between 2200 and 400 because the station is quieter then, and I do not sleep heavily." She turned a page on her tablet. "It is not a serious problem, but it will create minor atmospheric drift in the east residential block over about 18 months if it is not corrected." I made a note. "I will look at it today," I said. "The calibration report number is R14Keth7. Supplemental B. The error is in the interval specification on page 3, second paragraph. Whoever wrote it transposed the 9 and the 2. I wrote down the report number. She looked up from her tablet then and looked at me. Not as though she was assessing me exactly. More the way someone looks at a piece of equipment when they are deciding whether it is the right tool for a job. A careful, unhurried appraisal that took in my work jacket and my tablet and the coffee I had not touched yet, and then settled back on my face. "My sister spoke to you," she said. "It was not a question." "She did." "I told her not to. She told me something similar might be the case." Ethai looked at me for another moment. Then she looked back at her tablet. I am not a problem that needs solving, evaluator. I know, I said. I did not come here because your sister asked me to. I came because I wanted to meet the person who could hear an atmospheric relay running at a 0.3 second overcycle from the residential block. She was quiet for a moment. The harmonic frequency is 44 Hz, she said. Our hearing range extends to 88 Hz upper threshold. Humans are 20. You probably could not hear it at all. Probably not. You could feel it, though. If you stood in the right spot in the east corridor between 2200 and midnight, it would be a vibration in the floor, very faint, about the weight of a cat walking on the other side of a wall. I had no idea if that was an accurate description. I filed it carefully. I will check the floor at 2200, I said. She looked up again, and this time there was something different in her expression, not quite a smile, but the thing that precedes a smile in a person who is not in the habit of showing them. You are going to be very annoying, she said, in the tone of someone delivering a neutral technical assessment, aren't you? Probably, I said. I corrected the relay calibration that afternoon. I sent her the updated report number with a brief note, interval corrected to 4.2 second specification. Harmonic should resolve within one cycle. She replied with 3 words. The harmonic stopped. We met in the commissary the next morning, and the morning after that. By the end of the first week, I had learned the following things. She had been on Orithketh 5 for 4 years, longer than most of the transit staff. She worked in the technical document archive, which was a job that required reading large volumes of technical documentation and flagging inconsistencies and errors. And she was exceptionally good at it because she read fast, retained everything, and had no patience for sloppy specification writing. She had a gift for spatial reasoning that she applied to everything from maintenance schedules to the arrangement of the commissary furniture, which she had apparently spent some time thinking about and had a theory regarding. Her mobility frame was a compact standard model, and she found it adequate for the station's interior design, but had several specific objections to the door clearances on sub-level 1 that were, I checked, entirely valid. The specification called for 1.2 meters, and the sub-level 1 doors were running at 0.94 on 3 of the 6 approach corridors, which had been filed and not addressed in the maintenance queue for 14 months. She liked coffee. She did not like the station's brand of ground seed concentrate, which she described as what ground seed concentrate would taste like if it had been manufactured by someone who had only read a description of ground seed concentrate and had not understood the key descriptors. She was 26 years old. She had never left the station in the 4 years she had been here because the transit berthing clearances on the standard outer corridor haulers were not designed for her frame. She mentioned this the way she mentioned door clearance specifications, as a fact, accessible and correctable, not as a complaint. She did not ask me why I kept coming to the commissary. I did not explain. We read at the same table every morning, and sometimes we talked and sometimes we did not, and it became, without my planning it, the fixed point of my day, the 7:30 corner table, the east window light, the inadequate coffee, the sound of whatever Ethai had found in the previous day's archive queue that was wrong. At the end of the second week, she said, "My sister told you about the relocation order." She did. And the registry proposal. She left a form on my desk. Ethai was quiet for a moment. She was looking at her coffee. "You should know that I was not part of that plan," she said. "Keen does not always consult me about plans she makes on my behalf." I gathered. "I am also aware," she said carefully, "that the plan has a certain practical logic to it. The house administration will not override a household registry entry. If I were registered to a person here, the relocation order would have no standing." She looked up. "I am telling you this not because I think you should do it." I am telling you because I want you to understand what you are actually being asked, so that if you are considering it, you are considering it clearly and not because my sister's framing of the situation made it sound like a small thing. I appreciate that, I said. I do not need someone to rescue me, she said. It came out flat and precise, the way her technical assessments came out, not emotional, just exactly what she meant. I know, I said. Then why are you still here? I thought about that honestly, the way I thought about load tolerance problems, from first principles, without assumptions about what the answer should be before I had finished looking at the evidence. Because I like mornings at the corner table with the eastern window, I said. And I had not found anyone worth sharing them with before. She was quiet for a while after that. Then she said, "The coffee is not very good." It really isn't. The light is good, though. It is, I said, it's good light. In the third week, she showed me what she actually did. I had asked, and she had said I could come to the archive in the late afternoon when the shift traffic was lighter. I went at 1600 on a Wednesday, and she showed me the Sub-Level 1 document archive, a long room with low clearance shelving on 3 walls and 6 workstations, all of which she had apparently reconfigured over 4 years to optimize for her working reach. She had added a lower set reference rail built from station standard conduit pipe and mounting brackets, installed with the correct load-bearing specifications for the conduit gauge, which I checked because I noticed these things. She pulled up the current review queue, which contained 47 documents in varying stages of flagging. "This one," she said, opening the first file. "It is a drainage specification update for Sub-Level 6, Corridor B through E. The update was filed 6 months ago to correct a water routing error identified in the original construction document." "I know this one," I said, "the contractor who filed it." "The contractor filed a correction that introduced a new error." She pointed to a line in the specification. "The original document specified a 2.3 centimeter drain aperture. The original document was wrong. The correct specification is 2.5 centimeters. The contractor's correction changed the aperture specification to 2.7 centimeters, which overcorrects the drainage rate and will create a pooling risk in Corridor B during peak flow events. The contractor appears to have read the correction order incorrectly and applied an additional 0.2 centimeter adjustment that was not specified." I read the line she was pointing to. She was right. "How long has this been in your queue?" I said. 4 days. I flagged it this morning. It needs to go back to the contractor with a correction note before the physical work begins. The installation is scheduled for next month." I made a note. I pulled up the work order on my own tablet and added a hold flag with a review comment citing the specification error. "The work order number," I said. She gave it to me from memory without looking it up. We went through 7 more documents that afternoon. She was right on 5 of them. On the 6th, I looked at her flag and disagreed. She had identified a specification difference between 2 documents that I thought was an intentional revision rather than an error, and I explained why, citing the revision history in the master maintenance log. She listened, read the revision history herself, was quiet for a moment, and then said, "You are correct. I misread the revision date. I will unflag it." No argument, no difficulty about being wrong. Just the same flat, precise acknowledgement she applied to everything. On the 7th document, we were both wrong. We had both missed a cross-reference error in the specification that only became visible when I pulled up the original construction survey from 30 years ago and compared the corridor numbering system, which had been changed once and not changed back in one of the sub-documents. It took us 40 minutes to find it. When we found it, she said, "That is a good one," in the tone of someone who means it as a genuine compliment to the error for being well hidden. I stayed until 1830. When I left, she said, "Tomorrow, the commissary. I found another relay specification issue on sublevel 2. I will be there at 7:30, I said. She was already reading the next document in the queue. The relocation order arrived formally on a Friday, delivered to Ethai's registered address on the station, which was a small apartment in the East Residential Block, East Corridor, Room 14C, in the form of an official Velsorn House transfer notice. She told me about it the following Monday at the commissary table, with the same flat precision she used for everything, which meant that either she was not as unsettled by it as I would have been, or she was considerably better at managing what she showed than I was at reading what she hid. 11 weeks from last Friday, she said. The transfer is to the Kethorvath 3 facility, standard dependent care classification. My house covers the transit cost. The facility covers accommodation and support services. My archive credentials transfer to whatever documentation work the facility has available, which, based on the facility's operational profile, consists primarily of internal administrative records. She paused. I have reviewed their documentation publicly available records. They have approximately 40 documents in the queue at any time. My current queue is 47 documents after a morning's review. Their documents are internal administrative records, not technical specifications. I said nothing. The facility is correct, she said. It was the same thing her sister had said, word for word, and I understood then that they had said it to each other enough times that it had become a kind of shorthand for everything they were not saying. The staff is qualified. The residents are comfortable. Are you comfortable? I asked. She looked at me. It was a direct look, the kind that meant she was deciding what to say, not that she did not know what she thought. I am here, she said. I know this station. I know the sublevel 2 relay system better than the contractor who installed it. I know the drainage specification history back 12 years. I know the lighting calibration records for the East Residential Block going back to the original construction commissioning document. The facility at Kethorvath 3 has 40 documents in queue at any given time, and they are internal administrative records. She picked up her coffee. I would like to stay here, she said. I am telling you this because you asked. I am not telling you this so that you will do something about it. I know, I said. She read her tablet. I drank my coffee and thought about load paths. In the 4th week, Velsorn Keen came to my evaluation bay again. She did not bring a folder this time. She sat down and said, "The relocation order has been confirmed. The House administration filed the transfer documentation last Friday. 11 weeks from that date, Ethai's residency on this station ends." I know, I said. She told me. Keen looked at me. I should not have done what I did, she said. The form on your desk, it was not appropriate. She stopped. I was frightened. I have been trying to find a solution to this problem for 2 years, and I had run out of options that did not require Ethai's cooperation, and she will not cooperate with things she considers charity. She is not wrong about that. No, she is usually not wrong. Keen set her hands on the desk. I came to tell you that I am withdrawing the proposal. Whatever you and my sister are doing in the commissary every morning is separate. I should not have framed it as a solution. Can I ask you something? I said. Yes. The relocation annex at Kethorvath 3, what is it actually like? Keen was quiet for a moment. It is a correct facility, she said. It is staffed well. The medical support is good. The residents are comfortable. But it is designed for people who need substantial care. Ethai does not need substantial care. She needs a door clearance of 1.2 meters instead of 0.9 meters and a lower workstation surface and a transit system that can accommodate her frame, and she is entirely capable of managing her own life in every other regard. She paused. The annex will manage her life for her. They will mean well. They will be kind. And she will spend the rest of her life being managed kindly by people who cannot imagine what she could do if anyone bothered to find out what she actually knows. I thought about 47 documents in queue and a drainage specification error that had been in the system for 6 months waiting for someone to catch it. "I know," I said. She stood up. "I should not have come to you," she said. "I am sorry for it." "Don't be," I said. She stopped at the door. "She is extraordinary," Keene said. "It came out quietly, the way things come out when a person has been holding them for a long time and has finally stopped rationing them. She has always been extraordinary. The house just never looked at her long enough to see it. They see what she cannot do. They file the forms. They make the arrangements. And none of them have ever sat with her in the document archive for 2 hours watching her find a cross-reference error that 2 trained specification reviewers had missed for 30 years. And so none of them know what they are arranging her away from." She left. I sat in the evaluation bay for a while after that, thinking about load paths. Not metaphorically. Literally. The structural principle that a load path is the route a force travels through a structure to reach a foundation, and that if you read it correctly you understand both what the structure can bear and where it is likely to fail. You do not correct a failing load path by removing the load. The correct intervention is connection. You build the path that lets the capacity meet the load. I pulled up the Compact Technical Specialist Registry forms. There are things about the Compact administrative system that most people do not know because most people have no reason to know them. I knew them because I had spent 22 years filling out Compact forms on behalf of infrastructure evaluations, and I had learned over time to read the administrative code the way I read structural specifications. Not for what it said it was about, but for what it actually constrained and what it actually permitted, and where the two things were not the same. The Compact Technical Specialist Registry was designed for credentialed specialists on long-term infrastructure contracts. The provision dated to the Outer Corridor expansion period, when pulling specialists off stations mid-evaluation, because their housing status had changed created expensive disruption. The solution the administrative code arrived at was a waystation residency protection for registered technical specialists attached to active evaluation teams, protection that held for the duration of the contract, regardless of any other administrative orders pertaining to housing. The Compact had made the protection absolute deliberately. A protection that could be overridden was not a protection. It was a delay. SciFi had a technical archive certification, a document review credential, and 4 years of error flagging work on Orithketh 5 that had caught, by my count based on the files she had mentioned to me, and the work orders I had subsequently traced, 22 significant specification errors in station maintenance documentation, 3 of which had been caught before the physical work was done, and had prevented installation errors that would have cost more to correct than the entire annual maintenance budget for the sublevels involved. Her work was good. It was better than good. It was the kind of work that the station relied on without knowing it relied on it, because the errors she caught were the ones that would have become problems in 18 months or 3 years or 5, when the original specification was long since filed, and no one would have thought to connect the eventual problem to the document that contained the error. I spent 3 evenings on the application. I cited every correction I could trace to her flagging work, with report numbers and work order references, and the cost estimates on the corrections where those were available. I wrote the assessment of her technical knowledge carefully, specifically, grounding every claim in documented instances rather than general characterization, because I knew how compact administrative forms were read, and I knew that a general claim of technical competence was easier to dismiss than a specific claim with a reference number attached to it. On the 4th evening, I sent the application to the Regional Compact Infrastructure Office with my assessment attached, and a recommendation that she be registered as a technical documentation specialist on my evaluation team on the grounds that her site-specific knowledge of Orithketh 5's maintenance history was operationally relevant to my ongoing evaluation work, and that her departure from the station would create a knowledge gap in the documentation review process that would require significant time. Reconstruct. This was accurate. Every word of it was accurate. She did know things about this station's maintenance history that I was using. The atmospheric relay recalibration was one example. The sublevel 6 drainage specification was another. The cross-reference error in the 30-year-old construction survey was a third. The residency protection her registration would produce was a consequence of the registration, not the purpose of it. I told myself this. I also told myself that I would have filed exactly this paperwork if I had encountered her work before I had encountered her, because that was also true. Her work was genuinely good enough that a competent evaluator who read it would want to formalize the working relationship, and I was a competent evaluator, and I had read it. And I told myself that the fact that the paperwork also happened to solve a housing problem was a feature of the administrative code, not a manipulation of it. The code was designed to protect exactly this situation. A technical specialist whose work was operationally valuable and whose residency status was under threat from an administrative order that did not have visibility into that operational value. All of these things were true. None of them were the reason I checked the application 4 times before I sent it, or why I lay awake for an hour afterward going over the citation list to make sure nothing in it could be challenged, or why I pulled up the regional office's processing standards in the morning to confirm the expected response time, and found that I was disappointed it was 10 working days rather than 5. The confirmation arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was in the evaluation bay when the notification came through on my terminal. I read it twice, then I set down what I was working on and walked to the commissary. She was at the corner table, tablet propped, coffee, the annotation tool going through something that, from the visible portion of the screen, appeared to be a ventilation specification. I got my coffee and walked over. She looked up. I sat down and put my tablet on the table and opened the registration document and turned the tablet so she could read it. She read it twice. She set the tablet back between us. "You are listing me as a technical documentation specialist on your evaluation team," she said. "I am. On the grounds that my site-specific knowledge of this station's maintenance history is operationally relevant." It is. I cited 4 specific instances in the application: the relay calibration, the sublevel 4 drainage specification, the east corridor lighting panels, and the cross-reference error in the construction survey. There are others I could have cited. I used those 4 because they had the clearest documentation trail. "I know what you cited. I can read." She was looking at the document, not at me. "This gives me way station residency rights for the duration of your contract." "It does. And your contract runs another 4 years. 3 years and 8 months. She was quiet for a long time. The commissary was doing its morning business around us, the slow filling in of tables, the coffee line, a pair of transit workers at the next table running through a shift handover, the particular sounds of a way station coming online for the day. Everything that was ordinary about this place, which was most of what I had come to value about it. "You did not ask me," she said. "It was not an accusation. It was a precise statement of a fact offered for the record." "I did not," I said. "I thought about asking you. I was afraid you would tell me not to do it." "I would have told you not to do it." "I know." She was quiet again. "What happens in 3 years and 8 months?" she said. "I renew the contract. I have renewed it twice already. I expect to renew it again. And if you don't, if you transfer, if you retire." Then I add you to the evaluation report as a contractor on the current documentation review project and recommend your registration be transferred to the incoming evaluator on the grounds of operational continuity. The paperwork for that transfer is straightforward. The specialist registry has a standard continuity protocol. It was designed for exactly that situation. She was quiet again, longer this time. You have thought about this carefully, she said. I spent several evenings on it. I am thorough about load paths. She looked up. You have said that before. I still do not know what it means. I will explain it sometime, I said. It is a structural engineering concept. The short version is, the correct response to a problem is not always to reduce the load. Sometimes the correct response is to build a better path. She looked at me steadily for a moment. I am not a charity case, she said. I know that. I have read your work. Your error rate on this station's documentation archive is lower than the rate of the 2 human specialists who held this job before you, both of whom had more years of experience and both of whose records I checked specifically, so I could put that in the application if I needed to. Your site knowledge retention is better than mine, and I have been doing this work for 22 years. You flagged an atmospheric relay error that I missed on the recalibration sign-off. You found a construction survey cross-reference error that had been in the system for 3 decades. You are listed as a technical documentation specialist on my evaluation team because you are one. The paperwork reflects what is already true. She looked at the registration document for a long time. My sister put you up to this, she said. It was not quite a question. Your sister put a form on my desk 6 weeks ago. I have not spoken to her since. This is mine. It is mine, she said. You said it is mine, the paperwork. The decision was mine, I said. What you do with the paperwork is yours. She picked up the tablet. She read the document again, the whole thing, from the header to the registration confirmation number at the bottom. Then she folded it precisely, the tablet's orientation, the way she positioned it, and set it on the table and put her hand flat on top of it for a moment, a brief deliberate pressure, the way you set your hand on something to confirm it is real and where you think it is. Then she moved her hand and picked up her coffee. Sublevel 1, she said. The document archive. 3 lighting panels running at 87% of specified output. Work order filed 14 months ago. Contractor no longer on station. Queue stalled. I will look at it today, I said. ML 1keth 29. Appendix C has the correct panel specification. Thank you, I said. And sublevel 6, the drainage specification I flagged last week. The contractor has confirmed the installation date. If the hold is not in the system by Thursday, the physical work will proceed on the incorrect specification. The hold is already in the system. I added it the day you flagged it. She looked at me with the particular expression she used when she was reassessing a previous conclusion. It was brief and precise and slightly surprised. I did not know you had done that, she said. I do most things the same day, I said. I find delays in specification work create compounding problems. She picked up her annotation tool. She went back to the ventilation specification she had been reading. After a moment she said, "The light here is still the best on the station." "It is," I said. We read. Velsorn Keene came to the evaluation bay one more time, 2 weeks after the registration confirmation. She did not say anything when she came in. She stood in the doorway for a moment, copper-bronze skin, dark hair, the practical clasp, the same expression she had carried into the bay 6 weeks ago, except different now in a way that took me a moment to identify. And then she crossed to the desk and sat down and put her hands flat on the surface and looked at me. She told me, she said. I thought she might. The technical specialist registration, Keene shook her head. Not in disapproval, in something that looked, if I read it correctly, like the specific quality of astonishment that comes when someone does the thing you needed done, and you discover it was possible all along, and you were simply looking in the wrong place. I had not thought of that approach. The administrative code has a provision for site-specific specialist knowledge, I said. It was designed for geological survey teams originally in the outer corridor expansion period, but the language in the provision is general. It does not specify the domain. Technical documentation qualifies. I see. She was quiet. The House administration will not contest a compact technical registry entry. It is outside their authority. The Compact Specialist Registry operates under the Infrastructure Division mandate, I said. The mandate predates the House Administrative Code by about 60 years. The hierarchy is unambiguous. So the relocation order has no standing. Not while she is a registered specialist on an active evaluation contract with an evaluator whose contract is current. Keene looked at her hands. She was very still for a moment in the way that people are still when they are feeling something large and have not yet decided what shape to give it. I have been trying to solve this problem for 2 years, she said. I know, she told me. I tried the household registry approach, which you know, because I left the form on your desk. I tried the dependency status reclassification, which requires a medical assessment that SciFi declined to participate in. I filed a capacity assessment challenge with the House administration 3 separate times, arguing that the dependent care classification was not appropriate given her functioning level, and 3 times the administration declined to reconsider on the grounds that the classification was based on the congenital condition, not on her demonstrated capabilities, and that their classification framework does not have a category for her situation. I tried to get her archive certification upgraded to a compact-level credential through the standard pathway, but the standard pathway requires a 6-month residency evaluation period, and the relocation order would have taken effect 3 months before the evaluation could be completed. She paused. I never thought about the evaluation contract provision, she said. I did not know it existed. It is not an obvious approach, I said. You have to have spent a significant amount of time working inside the infrastructure evaluation system to encounter it. It is in the standard contract framework appendix. Most people who process evaluation contracts read the main body, and not the appendices. You read the appendices. I have been filling out evaluation contracts for 22 years. I have read all of them. She nodded slowly. There was a long quiet. You have been here 6 years, she said. I have. Your contract has been renewed twice. Yes. You could have transferred at either renewal. You could take a posting on an inner system station, better facilities, more traffic. More, she searched for the word and did not quite find it. More. More than what? I said. She did not answer that directly. She looked at the window instead, the narrow one on the east wall that gave onto the outer docking ring, the slow, steady rotation of the station's outer structure, the running lights of a hauler on the approach corridor, the particular quality of outer corridor space that was either very empty or very full depending on how you thought about it. She said something to me, Keene said, when she told me about the registration. She said, Keene stopped and started again, and I could hear her selecting the words precisely, the way she did most things. She said that she has been waiting her whole life for someone to read her correctly the first time, without looking at the frame first and then adjusting their read of her based on that. She said you did not do that. She said you looked at the relay specification error before you looked at anything else. I thought about a 44 Hz harmonic, a correction filed 14 months ago, a drainage aperture that was 0.2 centimeters wrong. She found the error, I said. I just corrected it. Keene looked at me. And then she smiled, not the careful, composed expression she used in the commissary corridor when she passed me in the mornings, but a real one, short and surprised and slightly unguarded, The kind that means someone has been given something they were not expecting. Yes, she said, she does that. She stood up, straightened her jacket, precise and composed. At the door she stopped. Thank you, she said. It was simple and direct, and she meant all of it. The relay specification was mine to correct, I said. I should have caught it before she did. She shook her head once, very slightly, in the manner of someone setting aside an argument that is beside the point. Then she left. I sat in the evaluation bay for a while. The morning light came through the east window and lay across the desk in a long rectangle. On sublevel 1, the lighting panels were now running at correct output specification. The relay on sublevel 3 was calibrated correctly. The drainage specification on sublevel 4 was corrected. The hold on the sublevel 6 drainage installation was in the system with the correct specification cited. The construction survey cross-reference error had been logged, traced, and corrected through 4 downstream documents, which had taken most of a Thursday afternoon, and which I had not mentioned to anyone because it was simply part of the job. Outside, the station was doing what way stations do. It was cycling through its shifts, running its atmospheric relays, processing its transit traffic, being the particular quiet kind of useful that outer corridor way stations are when they are working correctly, and all the documents that describe how they should work actually say the right things. I pulled up the next evaluation report and started reading. At 7:30 the following morning, I got my coffee and walked to the corner table with the eastern window. She was already there. Tablet propped against the salt dispenser, dark hair, pale gray eyes reading something that was, from the portion of the screen I could see, a ventilation specification for sublevel 4, the updated one, I noted, which meant she was checking the corrected version against the original to make sure the correction had been applied throughout, and not just in the primary document. She had the red annotation tool in her hand. I sat down. She did not look up. After a moment she said, Sublevel 4, Ventilation Specification, Section 3. The correction was applied correctly in the primary document, but the cross-reference in the maintenance master log still points to the old version. If a contractor pulls the master log reference rather than the primary document, they will work from the incorrect specification. Work order number. I am working on the flag now. I will send it when it is filed. All right, I said. The commissary filled up around us. The morning shifted toward the 800 change. A transit crew came in and took the large table by the north wall, and the server moved through the room with the patient efficiency that I had come to associate specifically with the early morning on this station, unhurried, exact, without wasted motion. After a while she said, the sublevel 2 relay calibration records. There is a pattern in the error frequency on the east side relays that I have been looking at for 3 weeks. The errors are not random. They cluster around the second and fourth weeks of the maintenance cycle, which suggests the calibration procedure is being applied inconsistently, correctly on the first and third visits, but not the second and fourth. That suggests a handover problem, I said. 2 different technicians doing alternate visits, one of them doing the procedure correctly and the other not. That is my assessment. The work order record should show which technician covered which visits. She looked up. If I am right, the fix is simple. If I am wrong, the pattern still needs an explanation. Send me the work order range, I said. I will pull the technician assignment records. She sent them before I finished my coffee. I pulled up the assignment records on my tablet. She was right, 2 technicians, alternating visits, and the error pattern aligned exactly with the second technician's visits. The second technician was a contractor on a 6-month rolling agreement whose primary credential was atmospheric systems, not relay calibration. They had been doing the relay calibration visits because the primary relay technician was on leave and no one had updated the assignment routing. I flagged the assignment error, and sent a correction to the maintenance scheduling office. She watched me do it. "You found it quickly," she said. "The assignment records are well organized. Once you told me where to look, it was straightforward. Most people, I tell things to do not go look. I find it is generally faster to look than to assume," I said. She considered that. Then she said, "Yes, that is a correct assessment of the situation." She went back to her tablet. The light came through the east window at the angle it always came through at this hour, the particular slant that hit the salt dispenser first, and then moved across the table surface toward the far side, slow and exact. The same every morning because the station's rotation was the same every morning, and the window faced the same direction, and the light source was constant. She had said it was the best light on the station. I had confirmed this by checking the other tables on other mornings before I knew her, when I was looking for the right place to sit. She was correct. After a while she said, without looking up, "Sublevel 3, East Corridor, panels 7 through 12. They are running at a 4.1 second cycle instead of the specified 4.3. It is producing a 22 Hz harmonic that is below the threshold of human hearing but measurable with standard equipment, and will cause cumulative circadian disruption in residents of the East Block over approximately 14 months. The work order number. I have not filed it yet. I am establishing the scope of the error first." A pause. "I wanted to ask you something." "Ask," I said. "The annotation in the technical specialist registration, the part about my site-specific knowledge being operationally relevant to the ongoing evaluation work." She looked up. "Was that true when you wrote it, or has it become true since?" I thought about that honestly. "It was true when I wrote it," I said. "The relay calibration was already an example. The sublevel 4 drainage error was already on record. Your work in the archive was already documented. I had already been using your site knowledge for 6 weeks before I filed the application." She looked at me for a moment. "Good," she said. "I prefer accurate documentation." "I know," I said. She went back to her tablet. The commissary ran. The day shift came on. The ventilation in the East Corridor cycled through its morning calibration, which ETHI would notice if it was off by a fraction of a cycle, and would document precisely and flag to the correct work order, and send to me with the reference number and the section of the specification that described the correct value. And I would look at it the same day, because delays in specification work create compounding problems, and because 22 years of outer corridor evaluation work had taught me that the small corrections are the ones that matter most, not the dramatic failures, not the structural collapses. But the 0.2 centimeter drainage aperture and the 0.3 second relay overcycle, and the cross-reference that had been wrong for 30 years pointing to a specification that no one had yet needed badly enough to notice. Outside, on the outer docking ring, a transit hauler was completing its approach on the standard outer corridor route, one of 17 way stations it would pass through, each one maintained by evaluators and archivists and specialists and document reviewers who kept the specifications correct, so the routes continued to work, one correction at a time, year after year, out here where the work was quiet and the errors were slow, and the value of what was caught only became visible in what never went wrong. I had been doing this work for 22 years. I had not, until now, fully understood that doing it alone meant I had been working at something like 70% efficiency, reading the documents I was given, but not the ones I was not given, catching the errors I encountered, but not the ones I had no way to know existed, completing the evaluations correctly based on what was visible, but missing the knowledge that lived in 4 years of daily archive review, and a person who could hear a 44 Hz harmonic through a residential corridor wall. She sent me the work order number for the sublevel 3 relay panel issue at 7:48. I pulled up the calibration records and found the error in about 4 minutes, which was fast, which meant she had read the pattern correctly, and I was looking in exactly the right place. I filed the correction flag. I sent her the confirmation. She replied with 2 words, "Good catch." I looked at that for a moment, then I wrote back, "You caught it, I just wrote it down." She did not reply to that, but when I looked up from my tablet she was looking at the east window, at the light coming through it, with an expression I had not seen on her before, not quite the thing preceding a smile that I had seen in the first week, but something quieter and more settled, the expression of a person who has been looking for the right place to be for a long time and has, somewhere in the preceding several weeks, stopped looking. The station ran. The coffee was not very good. The light was excellent,